Welcome to our food handlers class at maraming salamat that you are here with us in our online food handlers class. I'm Dr. Gloria Fabregas, the officer in charge of the City Health Office, and we would like to welcome all of you in our food handlers class. Because of this pandemic, ay nagkaroon na tayo ng mga innovations in how we can ensure that the health card that you are receiving, you still receive the orientation about food handlers. And hindi lamang po yung mga food handlers, we also would like to have an online not only of our health certificate, but also our HIV/AIDS counseling and even our drug dependency exam. We place so much emphasis on the food handlers class because alam naman natin na maraming mga, hindi lamang mga restaurants, hindi lamang mga hotels, pati ang ating mga small eateries needs to be oriented on food handlers class, food poisoning, food preparation, and everything. So, enjoy our class and I hope lahat po kayo makapasa and we are so thankful that you are here with us at patuloy tayo na makibaka dito sa ating COVID-19 pandemic and hopefully soon we will have a face-to-face food handlers class. But for the meantime, let's watch and enjoy our lessons, learning sessions for our food handlers class. I love Tacloban, mabuhay po lahat.
Food sanitation. Topic objectives : At the end of the session, the participants will be able to 1. Appreciate the importance of food sanitation in public health. 2. Understand the different aspect of monitoring and surveillance of food establishments. 3. Understand the sanitation and standard requirements of food establishments. 4. Understand the sanitary inspections and various permits required for a food establishments. Do we know what's in our food? How safe is our food? What is food? Food is any raw, cooked or processed edible substances, beverages or ingredient used or intended for use or for sale in whole or in part for human consumption according to Implementing Rules and Regulations on Food Establishments, Chapter 3, PD 856. Safe and wholesome refers to food that has been passed as fit for human consumption using the criteria that it bullet will not cause foodborne infection or intoxication when properly handled and prepared with respect to the intended use. Bullet does not contain residue in excess of set limits. Bullet it is free of obvious contamination, is free of defects that are generally recognized as objectionable to consumers, has been produced under adequate hygiene control, GMP and HACCP, has not been treated with illegal substances as specified in regulatory and food standards. 3 kind of hazards in food. 1. Biological hazards include bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi are commonly associated with humans and with raw products. 2. Chemical hazards are toxic substance that may occur naturally, e.g. aflatoxin, red tide, or may be added during the processing of food, nitrites, pesticides, fertilizers and others. 3. Physical hazards are foreign substances in the food, such as metal, hair, insects, glass, personal property, and others. What is food poisoning? An acute illness following ingestion of foods contaminated by bacteria, bacterial toxins, natural poisons, or harmful chemical substances. What is foodborne illness? The result of eating food contaminated with bacteria, or their toxins, or other pathogens such as viruses or parasites. The illnesses range from upset stomach to more serious symptoms including diarrhea, fever, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and dehydration. Food sanitation. Bullet to prevent foodborne diseases and spoilage of food and materials. Proper food surveillance and control are among the major activities in the field of sanitation. Bullet through proper control food establishments, food handlers, food and food materials and provision of environmental sanitary facilities. Control or monitoring and surveillance of food establishment. Classification is imperative to identify the specific requirements and prescribed methods based on sanitation standards. The regulatory mandate. Implementing Rules and Regulations of Chapter 3 Food Establishments of the Code on Sanitation of the Philippines, PD 856. What is food establishment? An establishment where food or drinks are manufactured, processed, stored, sold or served, including those that are located in vessels. Classifications: 1. Food eating and drinking establishments. 2. Food processing. 3. Food retailing. 4. Street food trade. 5. Market and slaughterhouse. Scope of regulation: all food establishments and facilities including those located in vessels, food containers and vehicles, and food sold in the streets. The food eating and drinking establishments can be classified based on the sanitation standard rating: class rating at 90% to 100% excellent, B 70% to 89% very satisfactory, C 50% to 69% satisfactory. Classification of food establishments: Class A percentage rating not lower than 90% plus conform with the preceding requirements. Class B percentage rating not lower than 70% and all those which failed to comply with one or more minor requirements for Class A. Class C percentage rating not lower than 50% and all those who violated one or more important items of sanitation requirements of public health importance, temporary operation and subject to cancellation of permit. Details on the upgrading and downgrading can be found in the on Chapter 3 on food establishment. Forms to be used in the monitoring and inspection of different kind of establishments. Classification A's Form No. Minimum frequency of inspection. Markets 103B M once a week. Supermarkets 103B SM once every 3 months. Other food establishments 103B once every 6 months. Ice plants and cold storage 103A IP once every 3 months. Grocery and sari store 103A G/SSS once a month. Sanitation requirements for operating a food establishment. No person or entity shall operate a food establishment for public patronage without securing a sanitary permit, issued and renewed yearly by city or municipal health office, having jurisdiction over the establishment upon compliance to at least satisfactory rating based on existing sanitation standards for food establishment. The following requirements shall be attached to the application of sanitary permit: floor plan of the establishment, health certificates of all the food handlers with corresponding laboratory results, copy of recent water microbiological analysis. Steps to processing of application for sanitary permit: 1. Submission of application form together with a floor plan by the owner to the RU. 2. The sanitary inspector must check the application form with the plan of the proposed establishment whether it meets the requirements or not. 3. If the application meets the requirements, carry out inspection of the proposed establishment. 4. If the establishment does not meet the standard requirements, he may recommend improvement. 5. If the establishment meets the requirements, the SI must recommend the issuance of the sanitary permit to the MHO, who will then issue the permit to the applicant without delay, after paying the sanitary permit. Steps to processing of application for sanitary permit. 6. After the issuance of the sanitary permit, the SI should record it in the Registry Book of Sanitary Permits. 7. The sanitary permit shall be posted in a conspicuous place within the establishment for public information. 8. The sanitary permit is renewable every year upon the recommendation of the SI after inspection. Existing food establishments. All existing food establishments shall be required to renew their sanitary permits starting January of every year. You are required to carry out routing inspection of all existing food establishments. The food establishments have to maintain the 50% and above rating. If the rate is still below 50% after a follow-up inspection, issue a sanitary order. Inspection protocol. A. Prepare a blank inspection form and previous inspection form for reference. B. Depending on the nature or type of the food establishment. Items number 1, 2, 3, special features of the sanitary inspection form must be rated on the prescribed standard and specific requirements as listed in the EA, and items number 4 to 20 are to be rated as well, all based on demerit system. C. Complete the inspection form including recommendation for improvement in duplicate. D. Explain the defect marked X in the if and indicate the corrective measures including the grace period for the owner to comply to meet at least 50% rating. Have the if signed by food operator/manager as acknowledgement Inspection Protocol. Leave the duplicate copy of the inspection form to the food operator/manager. Prepare a blank inspection form and previous inspection form for reference. Submit the original copy to the CHO/MHO for recommendation. In the issuance of sanitary permit and sanitation standard, rating sticker SSRS, if the rating is above 50%, the SSRS should be posted for public view. Reminder, in carrying out inspection, wear the official uniform, if any. Bring other supplies and materials needed. Identify yourself and present ID card. Explain mission. Sanitary order. You should recommend to the MHO/CHO the issuance of sanitary order to the food establishments that failed to institute corrective measures within the grace period. A's form number 107. Compliance to sanitary order issued. Conduct a re-inspection on the food establishment after the grace period has elapsed. Issue compliance to sanitary order if deficiencies are corrected. The grave condition. Whenever the sanitary condition is grave and may endanger public health, recommend the immediate suspension of sanitary permit and issue a sanitary order for the correction of deficiencies and defects. See lifting of suspension. Recommend lifting of suspension of permit when the food operator/manager has satisfactorily corrected the defects. Sanitary order. D. Second sanitary order. Issue a second sanitary order if the grace period has elapsed and food operator still fails to comply. Notice of hearing. Give a notice of hearing to the operator of the food establishment that fails to comply with the sanitation orders issued. Revocation of sanitary permit. In case of non-compliance with the 1st sanitary order issued, the city/municipal health officer shall conduct a preliminary hearing with the presence of the respondent and sanitation inspector. B. If the food operator/manager is amenable to comply with the given order and needs time, the CHO/MHO may grant an extension on the grace period in consultation with you, SI. If the food operator/manager refuses or fail to comply, the CHO/MHO takes action on the revocation without delay. D. The CHO/MHO informs other related agencies of the city/municipality regarding the revocation of sanitary permit. The LHA files court proceedings against any establishment which continuously operates after the revocation of its permit. The establishment owner may appeal the case in court if he or she is not satisfied with the action taken by the LHA. G. With the assistance of the SI, the CHO/MHO must appear in court. Court decision is final. Control of food and food materials. Effective control of food and food materials may be achieved by safeguarding them possible contamination of source, transport, storage, and handling and serving. This may be realized through training of food workers and enforcement of existing laws or local ordinances. Source. Surveillance of food sources. A food source in the assignment area. Periodic inspection. Issuance of certificate of transfer permit. Control of food and food materials. The food and food materials coming from other areas. Check if certificate and other supporting papers indicating the total quantity of food and food materials being transported and whether they come from approved sources or not. Check transfer permit. Action to be taken for unsafe source: carry out rigid inspection and recommend improvement and follow up. B. Doubtful source: conduct specific survey or study including laboratory analysis, if needed. C. Immediate closure of the establishment or condemnation of food sources if found in danger to public health. D. Notify the consumers that the food sources are unsafe. Transport. Check the structure of the transport: A. Check if all food and food materials are transported only in facilities properly designed for the purpose. B. Check the cleanliness of the vehicle. The transport must be clean at all times and disinfected periodically. C. Observe if proper temperature required by food and food materials during its transport is well maintained. Handling and serving. A. Preparation. Only safe and wholesome food materials are used. Food materials are cleaned with safe water. Enough equipment and utensils are provided, properly cleaned and sanitized. Food and food materials are prepared, processed and cooked in sanitary manner. B. Storage. Wet and dry foods are stored separately. Proper temperature is maintained. Food and food materials are protected from contamination by insects and rodents, chemical substances and others. C. Serving. Food and food materials are properly displayed and protected from all possible contamination. Food are served with clean and sanitized utensils. Proper temperature are maintained. Separate utensils are used for each kind of food. Leftover food are never served. All contaminated foods or those of doubtful quality are condemned. Control of food handlers. One of the common ways of regulating food handlers is through medical examination of food vendors. No person shall be employed in any food establishment without a health certificate issued by the city/municipal health officer. This certificate shall be issued only after the required physical and medical examinations and immunizations. All food establishment owners/operators and food handlers must be trained in food sanitation and personal hygiene. Sample module for the training of food handlers. Mechanics of the course. Prevention and control of foodborne diseases. Laws and regulation, sanitary requirements for food establishments and food handlers. Food surveillance, storage and sanitizing. Proper food handling. Self-regulation. Course evaluation. Provision of environmental sanitary facilities. All food establishments must comply with the provisions of sanitary facilities and structural requirements stated in the era of Chapter 3, Food Establishments. As SI, always be familiar with it and utilize it in the conduct of inspection and other food sanitation activities. Regulation of other food establishments. Market and slaughterhouse. Provisions of sanitation requirement of these food establishments, based from is on Chapter 3 and IV of PD 856 shall be applied. Provisions of the EAR for the ambulant food vendors. Ambulant food vendors shall sell only bottled drinks, biscuits, and confectionaries, and other pre-packed foods. It is prohibited for ambulant food vendors to sell food that requires the use of utensils. Definition of street foods. Street vended food or its equivalent street foods, which are defined as foods prepared and or sold by vendors in street and other public places for immediate consumption or consumption on a later time without further processing or preparation. Street food trade SFT. Regulation of SFT is under the discretion of LCE with consideration of the following conditions: 3 groups of street food trade which are approved to operate. A Group A SFT includes food stalls, food shops, food stands and other non-permanent structures that can be moved within designated food vending areas. B Group B SFT includes mobile food shops, wagons, trailer, buses, food carts and all other food trade which move around or are stationary at certain hours of the day in an approved vending place. C Group C SFT includes all hand-carried, shoulder-carried, suspended from the body food items that are pre-packed without using any utensils and portable containers. Monitoring activities of street food trade. A. Issuance of street food trade permit. B. Issuance of health certificate. C. Coordination with the local officials in the designation of street food vending areas. D. Actual inspection. Points to remember. Under the food sanitation provision, SIs are expected to conduct the following activities. Regular inspection of food establishments to assess quality and protection of food from contamination, availability and adequacy of facilities for proper food preparation, cooking, storage, and distribution of food, availability and adequacy of water supply, sanitary toilets and washing facilities for food handlers and customers, compliance to structural and sanitary requirements, and compliance to work permits by food handlers. Points to remember. Periodic inspection to enforces the maintenance of adequate sanitation as stipulated in the EAR of the Code. Periodic sampling of food and drinks for determination of wholesomeness and safety, and report findings of inspection and laboratory tests to local health officer for appropriate action whenever necessary. Basic knowledge and skills on the following. Definition and scope of food establishments. Food servicing operations. Structural and sanitary requirements for food establishments. Various pathways by which food and food products are being spoiled, contaminated and adulterated, and how these pathways be prevented and controlled. Various permits required. Sanitary inspection and sanitation standard. Sampling procedures for food and food products. Penal provisions. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click down below. If you want to see more videos, hit also the subscribe button and links in the description. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching or subscribing, and watch my next video.